Hey everybody, I'm Sin. Welcome to the Book Nook, where we talk about the awesomeness that is books. Today, we're going to talk about one of the best sci-fi novels of all time, and that is Dune. This is a chunk. This took me a bit of a time to read. I mean, look at the size of it. That's huge. Dune. It won one of the first ever Nebula Awards, which is the Nebula Awards. They basically recognize the best works of science fiction and fantasy. And they won the first ever one. They also won the Hugo Award as well. So this book came out in 1965. If you are a fan of Star Wars, which I am, once you read Dune, you will realize that Star Wars heavily borrowed from Dune, which I had no idea going into this. I'm not saying they were stealing. Imitation is the biggest form of flattery or something. But they borrowed very heavily from Dune. I still love Star Wars. It's cool, I guess. But yeah, Dune was it's a story of layers. There are so many different levels to it. It's political and philosophical, and obviously it's hugely sci-fi with some fantasy elements. There's all the different religions that are kind of like blended together, and it's the story of a family originally from a planet called Caladan, where water falls from the sky, and they move to a planet called Arrakis that is a desert planet, and it is known as Dune. The family is the Atreides family, the Duke Leto, the Bene Gesserit Jessica, which is a sort of, they call them witches, but they're kind of like a psychic class that can tap into different things. They have something called the Voice, which is kind of like, I guess you would say almost like the Force, to make a comparison. And then their son, Paul Atreides. And it's a story of treachery, what happens to the family, and all the things that ensue, and how it all plays out. The layers is like this crazy, like interwoven, braided tapestry that there's poetry and philosophy and just all these different thoughts, and looking at like the ecology of planets. I mean, this guy, I feel like, was ahead of his time and in caring about, how humans affect the planet and how they don't live in harmony with nature and what can happen. Like this desert planet, Arrakis, that they believe used to have water on it, and that the whole theme throughout this of how precious water is, and that you don't waste it. And it's more precious than money on this planet. So it also highly centers around the spice trade, which is what the riches on this planet all come from. And the spice, that's also in Star Wars. So they have a planet of spice, and spices, it has elements of almost a hallucinogen, but the people of the planet, they eat it in their food. They have spice beer. They become addicted, but it doesn't give all of them a psychic ability. I guess it depends on the quantity that you might take. There's a whole political system in place. There is the guild, and then there's the emperor, and this emperor had wanted the Atreides to come to Arrakis to take over for this house, but they had like this planned out treachery. We'll just say what happens is the family loses their position of house as duke and lady, and basically a royal family. They lose their position, and it's the story of you might even say a messiah that comes to the planet. It's the story of the Muad'Dib, who has been foretold of over, it seems, centuries of time, that is to come and to reach out and to the freemen, who are the people that dwell in the desert. The Atreides come to Arrakis, and then there's this other family, the Harkonnens, who basically everyone hates the Harkonnens. They're just this horrible people who murder and kill and just they're not good people. And so it's kind of there's a class war going on within them and within the houses with all this political BS that's going on because they all want to control the spice, which is the moneymaker. And then there's just betrayals within betrayals. Like, so, like, the one house, Harkonnen, thinks they're overthrowing the Atreides, but yet the Emperor, who's out there in space, is pulling all the strings and using them as pawns, and there's just a big amount of craziness going on. So you have the Atreides, the Harkonnens, and then the other people that live outside of, like, the main cities and areas, the Freemen, who live out in the sand. And they don't think there's a ton of them because, well, hey, there's giant sandworms out there. And those sandworms eat people. And there's crazy storms in the desert. They also have these cast of people that are the Sardaukar. And they are highly trained military people that are under the, I guess, employ of the Emperor. They come down and they take out the Freemen and whoever else. And so they don't think that the Freemen are that big of a problem, and then they don't think there's that many of them. So the son of Duke Leto, Paul Atreides, he becomes Paul Muad'Dib, the one who is foretold of, who would bring a new Arrakis, the water bringer, the one who brings life back to the planet. Now, this is not something that would be happening in most of their lifetimes, but that is the hope that their families and the generations after them can maybe possibly terraform this planet and bring water and life to it. And so it's the story of, is this Paul Atreides their Messiah, their Lisan al-Gaib, which is the voice from the outer world that had been foretold of. And Muad'Dib means, it's some sort of mouse. There's a constellation, Muad'Dib, that is the mouse. And this is supposed to take place, I think, like 20,000 years in the future. It also has, a look at environmentalism, and just, it was very captivating. It's huge, but there's so much world building that has to be accomplished in it. And you really get a feel for the characters. And it just, it was absolutely, it's a wild book. It was a wild read. This might be one of my most favorite sci-fi books ever. I can see why they say it's one of the best ever written. What's one of your favorite sci-fi books? Have you read Dune? What did you think of it? I had a few people tell me that they really liked it. I had people say it was really boring. They couldn't get into it. I feel a lot with sci-fi books that if it's going to be an all-encompassing huge story with all these different layers, you kind of have to build those layers. I don't feel anything was over-described. I felt like it all flowed very well. I read this about a week and a half. So for the size of this is over 800 pages. That's not too bad, I would say. I give this book 5 freaking stars. Also, I thought I would wear this hood because, I don't know, in the desert, then the Dune people, I imagine they wore hoods and stuff because the sun was really hot. And I do want to read the other books in the series. There's 6 of them. Yeah, my curiosity's peaked, but I have so many other books I have to read right now that I can't just, read them all at once. I did that with the Wheel of Time series, and then I burnt myself out on the Wheel of Time series so bad. I think I read 7 of them, and then I stopped, and I have not picked them up since. And now it's on, and it has a show, and la la la. If you have the time to read a chunky boy book, this is phenomenal. I really liked it. I'm a little late to the date of discovering Dune, but I'm glad that I finally made my way around to climb up the giant hill that was this book and to see what it was all about and what a vision it was. It's just, I think once you get going, you don't want to stop reading it. So, thank you everyone for joining me today in the Book Nook. If you had fun hanging out, boop that like button. Come back, see me again, and we'll talk abort. We'll talk abort! Oh man. We'll talk about the awesomeness that is books. So until next time, we'll see you later. I don't know. I don't know. What am I doing? I don't know. Away we go. Bye.